And what I say unto you, I say unto all, watch. Mark chapter 13, verse 37. Shalom. I want to start off by giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rachak, Kodash. Double honors to our venerable apostles, elders, and bishops of Great Millstone who rule well. And peace and blessings to the Lord's elect, the house of David. All right, so Brother Aharon coming back at you with another lesson, Lord willing to be edifying and uplifting unto the elect. All right, and just as we just read what our Lord Yahushai told us, all right, I'm going to read that again. Mark 13, verse 37, it says, and what I say unto you, I say unto all, watch. Okay, and why did the Lord emphasize that the importance of watching? Is because as a watchman, that's your job. Okay, your job is to stay on your watchtower and constantly watch to see if there's any danger that's approaching. All right, the city gates. All right, and then you make alert for the warriors to get ready. Okay, to defend. All right, to fortify the castle, if you will. Okay, in other words, we're warning and waking up the elect. All right, because the days are definitely evil. All right, for those who can't see it, they're gonna see it very soon. All right, we're talking about those who are following the likes of the IUIC and the ISUPK and so on and so forth. Okay, now this article here is titled 12 Steps to the Motb. Iran War is just a trigger. And once it started, we did say that this was going to be the catalyst for them to bring in many different measures, including the energy crisis. Okay, and right before I started this lesson, I saw a notification saying that Trump had officially declared a energy emergency. Okay, so Lord willing, we'll touch on that in a separate lesson, all right, as we see things transpire. But this is what I want to focus on, right? It's quite a lengthy article, so we're going to go through it step by step, all right? It says, what's happening right now is one of the most significant global events in recent memory. Magnitudes greater than the 2020 pandemic shutdowns. Yet, a good portion of the world remains ignorant. Here in the United States of America, which is Babylon the Great, the average citizen has no idea how significant the U.S.-Israel-Iran war is, or to more accurately describe it, they have no idea what a big deal the prolonged closure of the Strait of Hormuz is. This goes far beyond higher prices at the gas station. Its impact trickles down to every aspect of the global economy. A shrinking global economy is already a certainty, right? You got people with job loss, right? It's hard to get a job nowadays. You know, a lot of unemployment is skyrocketing. A lot of these companies, AI companies, are laying people off left and right by the thousands. Okay, so a lot of people are they're feeling that downturn in the economy. Okay, of course you got inflation. All right, it says here. It's like 1 second. Okay. All right. So continuing, it says here, a shrinking global economy is already a certainty. The only question remaining is this: how severe will the global depression be? And we know, all right, according to biblical prophecy, that is going to be the most severe time in human history. Okay, and prior to 2026, even going all the way back to 2023, 2022, we were doing lessons on how the UN was coming out and saying that there was going to be a famine, right? A hunger that's going to be the equivalent of 50 years straight. Okay, that's how bad the hunger is about to be. And it's going to be 50 years of compound effect of 50 years, all right, capped into a short amount of time. Like we talking months, right, if not a year or a year and a half, right, give or take, depending on how the Lord is going to play this thing out, right? It's going to be a short process, okay, but it's going to be very, very intense, okay? So it says here, if it's bad enough, it will topple over our already fragile debt-based global monetary system and usher in an entirely new era. All right, and that's biblical prophecy for them to bring in the Motb. Okay, it says this new era will be based on assets, digital tokens, and digital surveillance. More importantly, it will bring in a new global monetary system online, one that's indistinguishable in Slovakia, one that's indistinguishable in capability and function from the mark of the beast system we read about in Revelation 13. Okay, so if you're a Christian, pay attention. This coming system is yet another indication of the times in which we live. And Yahushua said, so when all these things begin to happen, stand and look up, for your salvation is near. Okay? How will this happen from one conflict in the Middle East, or rightfully called the western parts of Asia, all right, known as Asia Minor? Known today, you got western parts of Asia going all the way into Europe and so on and so forth. Okay, it says here. Here's a step-by-step overview of the process which play out in the months and years ahead. I wouldn't put years, I'll put months, because if things continue to go as they are right now and the Lord continues to intensify, all right, the pains, that baby's coming out quick. It's not going to go a day past 9 months, all right, if you understand what I'm saying. All right, step 1, significant loss of crude oil and liquefied natural gas. The world is now without a minimum of 12% of the global crude oil production and 21% of global LNG production. And even if the Strait of Hormuz reopens today, mathematically, the global economy has to endure at least 17 weeks without that energy. This is because only 5% of the normal shipping traffic has passed through the Strait of Hormuz for more than 7 weeks now. And once shipping returns to normal, it will take a minimum of 10 weeks to restore energy flows because of shipping logistics, shut-in oil production, and damaged oil and gas facilities. No combination of alternative sources can replace those missing supplies in a timely manner. This is critical to understand. What's happened means more than just higher oil and LNG prices. The supply that never reached the global market is simply unavailable to customers at any price. So in other words, you're not getting it at all to even say, oh, I can afford it or I cannot afford it. All right, and that's going to go for a lot of other things. Okay, suddenly shall the storehouses be found empty? Step 2, significant loss of crude oil and LNG derivatives. The world has lost almost 11 million BPD, or which would be barrels per day of crude oil production, and more than a fifth of LNG production as a result of the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. In addition, Ukrainian attacks on Russian oil export facilities have taken another 2 million plus barrels per day off the global market. But this means more than a loss of crude oil and LNG. Here's all the byproducts of those energy sources which normally come out of the Strait of Hormuz, along with the percentage of global seaborne trade for each commodity now taken offline. Gasoline, 16%, diesel, 10%, jet fuel, 19%. And you've been hearing, Spirit Airlines said they were going to basically liquidate and shut down. And I believe today, JetBlue also said that they're about to be, soon they're going to be filing for bankruptcy. All right, that they're billions of dollars in debt. And this year alone, they might be, by the time it's all said and done, maybe $1.3 billion in debt. So they're looking to go bankruptcy, file for bankruptcy. And if that happens, they're going to have to liquidate as well. They're going to be out of here. Okay. It says bunker fuel. Propane, 20%, bunker fuel, 15%, butane, 20%, sulfur, 47%, sulfuric acid, 35%, urea, 48%, ammonia, 30%, phosphate fertilizer, 27%, ethylene, 20%, propylene, 20%, helium, 30%, aluminum, 9%. Okay, so those are just, like it says, byproducts. All right, byproducts of, of having this shit closed down. What are certain things that's also going to be affected by the Strait of Hormuz being closed down? And we just read it. Step 3, factories produce less or go idle. With less gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, bunker fuel, and liquefied petroleum gas, fewer things will move in the global economy, from individual cars and trucks to entire factories. Okay, and what does that sound like? Let's get that. Let's get that real quick. All right, because this is the times that we're in. This is the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 12. And verse 3 says, "In the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, and the strong men shall bow themselves, and the grinders cease because they are few, and those that look out of the windows be darkened." Right? Why is the grinding ceasing, man? Because when you look at how the system works, right, everything is linked together. If one system goes down, it affects directly the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one. Is a domino effect. So this whole Strait of Hormuz situation is the catalyst to knock down the dominoes. And as the months go by, you're going to start seeing the effects of what took place over the span of about 40 days. Okay? You're about to start seeing the side effects of that. And it's a global side effect. All right? So it says here, and when the doors, the key point is, and the grinders cease because they are few. Okay, so going back to the article, right, it says, with less gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, bunker fuel, and liquefied petroleum gas, fewer things will move in the global economy, right? The grinding ceasing. From individual cars and trucks to entire factories, everything is grinding to a halt, as is written in the scriptures. With less LNG, urea, ammonia, and phosphate fertilizers, global crop yields will be lower. So again, that's also going to cause a famine. Okay? It says, with less ethylene and propylene, fewer plastics will be manufactured. With less helium and aluminum, fewer products will be made. For example, if European airlines have 30% less jet fuel than they normally do, then it stands to reason they'll have to fly 30% fewer miles than normal. If a factory manufacturing a consumer product requires ethylene to produce the product, and they're only able to produce 80% of the ethylene they normally do, then it stands to reason they'll have to produce 20% fewer products or product units than they normally do. Okay? So again, a shortage on all things. Again, the supply chain being affected by all of this shit. Step 4, mass corporate small businesses insolvency. Okay, so these are, again, we're reading the steps that leads to the Motb. And we've done it many different ways. But again, once you have people writing articles on things that we're seeing now and how it's going to lead to one thing and one thing only, you have to pay attention to it. At least see what they're talking about. Okay, maybe if IUIC and ISUPK was reading some of these articles, they'll have a better idea of what the Motb prophecy really is talking about. Okay, maybe when we say it, it doesn't really make sense to them. So maybe the articles might help them out a little bit. When a company produces fewer units of a core product, they typically receive less revenue for doing so. In a world where corporate debt exceeds $59 trillion, such an abrupt disruption is expected revenue and product projections will make it impossible for many companies to meet their debt obligations. Okay? Again, take the airline industry, for example. The airline industry as a whole is highly indebted. Most airlines buy jets on credit and pay back those loans through anticipated flight revenues. Okay? But what happens in a world where a shortage of jet fuel causes 20% or 30% of airline flights to be canceled? What happens to the profitability of the remaining flights in a world where jet fuel price double, which they have? In short, many such businesses will find themselves unable to make their debt payments. Okay? Number 5, or the fifth step, or step number 5, will be mass layoffs. We've seen that right now. But it's going to intensify. It's going to increase. Okay? You're not just going to be seeing people being laid off because they had all these high-paying jobs. It's going to go across the board because they already have the solution for that. Homelessness, not having a job and all that, that's the goal. Because they want to present to the world the universal basic income. Now they call it a universal high income, another way to seduce people. Okay? It says, what happens when households experience higher costs of living or cost for daily living expenses and then experience a job loss? They immediately cut all unnecessary spending, which further pressures businesses dependent on consumer discretionary spending. In such circumstances, many households will find it difficult to make payments on the mortgage, the car loan, the credit card, the student loan, the home equity line of credit, etc., etc., etc. Okay? What can be paid won't be paid. So many households declare bankruptcy and default on these loans. Step number 6, the debt-based monetary system implodes. In our debt-based monetary system, when someone defaults on a debt, it shrinks the currency supply. The way our monetary system is designed, it requires an ever-growing amount of debt to be taken on in order to prevent collapse of the system. Pretty much like a Ponzi scheme. That's exactly what it is, right? Currency, which would be your dollars, your euro, your yen, your, yuan, etc., right? Currency are not so much printed as they are loaned into existence. And that goes into the current banking philosophy, which is known as fractional reserve banking, okay? Which is basically any amount that you put into the bank, you can receive only 10% of that amount that you put in at a time. If you put in $100, you can only take out $10 at a time. That's what they'll have available to you. It's a fraction of what you put in, okay? And then the rest is going to be the 90% will be loaned out on interest, and then that's how they collect, and so on and so forth. Okay, so the same money being passed around. Each time a loan is made, it expands the currency supply. Over time, as that loan is paid off, it shrinks the currency supply. But in order to provide enough currency to pay off the principal of the loan, as well as the interest, new loans elsewhere must be made to expand the currency supply. If debt defaults exceed debt expansion, which is new loans, the system begins to implode. If new currency cannot be created faster than old currency is extinguished through debt default, the deflationary spiral hits. This is what happens during the Great Depression. Okay? Or this is what happened during the Great Depression. But this time it's going to be much worse. Much, much worse. Step 7, the banks start to experience bank runs. As this deflationary spiral leads to further job losses and bankruptcies, it will eventually spark a panic in financial markets. During this phase, expect to see bank runs in major industries or industrialized economies. Banks all over the world are already under enormous stress. For instance, in the United States, over 1,788 banks are at greater risk of failure due to their commercial real estate exposure. And according to the FDIC, the United States banking system is currently sitting on $300 billion in unrealized losses. Many people try to explain this away. Quote, "No need to worry," they say. "These are unrealized losses," they say. And that's true. But it's only true until the unrealized losses become realized losses. This is what happened in the spring of 2023 when customers demanded their cash deposits from Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank, and First Republic, causing all three banks to fail. Those failures amounted to the second, third, and fourth largest bank failures in U.S. history. After the fact, former Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said she feared a run on the banking system to the huge detriment to our economy and the hardworking Americans and businesses. Bullshit. Once bank runs like these emerge, central banks will take the same measures they took in March 2023, which is they'll panic and pledge to guarantee all deposits in an effort to prevent further bank runs. Unfortunately, this will only increase risk in the system as customers keep their deposits at institutions that are due to fail. All this will do is temporarily delay the inevitable and create the conditions that lead to the greatest run on banks since the Great Depression. Hey, we've been saying it. If you got some money, a little bit of good-looking change in your bank account, go take that shit out and convert it into gold and silver if you can. Okay, and have it with you. Have that stuff with you. Okay? Stop putting your money in a bank where you can't even go and take it out when you need to go take it out. That's bullshit. Okay? The banking system as a whole is a fraudulent system. If people would only wake up to that, you would not put your money in the fucking bank. You could leave your money at home. Have a small little case where you store your money. It's the same thing. You know what I'm saying? It's safer that way. If you have $10,000 in your house and you need $7,000 of that shit for an emergency, you can go use that money. But if it's at the bank, thinking it's safe, and you go over there to try to take the money out, they'll tell you, well, we can't give you this amount right now. They'll have you sign a whole bunch of shit, ask you a whole bunch of questions. What do you need this money for? What are you going to be using this for? Who are you going to be spending it with? What time will you be? All kinds of shit, man. All your own money. And this, you still want to put your money there? Fuck out of here. So step 8, a massive government/central bank response, right? Because you have the problem, we have the reaction, which is what we're about to read, and then the solution comes last, right? Fearing a repeat of the Great Depression and staring into the void of a deflationary or deflationary spiral, the governments and central banks across the globe will spend and print as much as they can in a desperate attempt to avoid prolonged depression. In recent crises, these types of efforts manage to kick the can down the road and avoid the much dreaded deflationary spiral and unraveling of the financial system. At some point during their policy response, governments and central banks will do something truly novel. They'll follow the law, something they didn't do during the 2023 bank failures. Under the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Protection Act, as well as other post-Great Financial Crisis legislation and regulatory changes, failed banks are supposed to be bailed in by depositors rather than bailed out by taxpayers. To bail in a bank means depositors are forced to recapitalize the bank with their own deposits. All cash deposits above the FDIC limit are used to rescue the bank and save it from collapse. In exchange, depositors receive equity, an ownership interest in the failing bank. Unfortunately, that equity has a market value much less than what the original cash deposit was worth. At some point, expect Fed officials to allow a bank to fail and be bailed in. Any businesses exclusively banking at this bailed-in bank will lose everything above the $250,000 limit, causing many of those businesses to fail. See, businesses all over the United States and all over the world will panic. That single attempt, and that's all it will take, one attempt to bail in a bank. And that will spark a panic run on all but the largest banks. As individuals and businesses move their cash deposits above the FDIC insured threshold to larger, too big to fail banks such as JP Morgan and Wells Fargo, regional banks and smaller banks will fail en masse. In the end, only a handful of banks will control the overwhelming majority of deposits, and that's all done by design. Okay? Because when you look at all these different banks, they all go back to one major bank, which is the Federal Reserve Bank. Okay, which is all tied into the Bank of England. Okay, the Bank of London. Okay, that's the root of all these banks. Okay, again, owned and ran by the multi-trillionaire Rothschild family. Okay, step 9, something big will blow up. As the largest bank run in history spreads across the globe, years and years of central planning and economic mismanagement will surface in the form of smaller implosions throughout the global economy. Because a lot of things are going to start being exposed, right? Again, this is the time of the revelation, okay? All the secrets and the things that made America run through deception will be exposed, all right? And that's what happens when an empire is about to be out of here, okay? They get exposed. Okay, it says, think of a leaky boat where the occupants frantically rush to plug the leaks. But for every hole they plug, 3 new leaks spring forth. These implosions will include major problems in the global derivatives market, estimated at somewhere between $1 and $4 quadrillion. Damn, I was not expecting that. Yep, shit. According to the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, 4 banks, just 4, hold 87.6% of the total banking industry notional amount of derivatives. That means the failure of just one of those banks will be enough to collapse the entire global financial system, i.e., those banks won't be allowed to fail. Also, as we saw during the Great Financial Crisis, this crisis will expose fraudulent activity. In 2008, Bernie Madoff was exposed for running the biggest Ponzi scheme in history. Expect to see more Bernie Madoffs In addition, expect to see several hedge funds, high net worth individuals, and other financial entities outside of the traditional regulatory system exposed as frauds for pledging the same collateral to multiple financial institutions. And you're seeing that now. Insider trading and all that shit. It's just a bunch of bullshit, man. Okay? And we ain't getting no cuts of that pie. All right? So continue step 10, bank holiday. At that point, the global economy will come to an immediate grinding halt. With credit markets frozen, trucks will stop making deliveries, factories will stop producing widgets, and every node in the global supply chain will freeze. In response, governments will announce, quote, a bank holiday, end quote. Global financial markets will close, all banks will close, and all electronic financial transactions will cease. A bank holiday last occurred in the United States in March 1933 at the height of the Great Depression. Markets and banks will remain closed until government regulators implement new measures to jumpstart credit markets and restore the orderly functioning of the financial system. So the next step we're looking for is the economy collapsing, the banks going into some type of insolvency. Okay, banks start to liquidate, and then you start seeing bank runs. Once that happens, this is the next step. Step 11, rollout of the new system. How will they manage to do this? How will they restore credit markets and the orderly function of the financial system? Once the system breaks, the solution will be conveniently found waiting in the wings. They're already preparing and testing it right now as we speak. Okay? That's all. It says all that's necessary is the proper crisis to drive its implementation. The solution they will roll out has 3 elements. 1, CBDC/stablecoins. The first of these elements is digital currency. Governments are currently pushing 2 types: central banks digital currency and stablecoins. That's the American one. CBDC is centralized digital fiat currency. Stablecoins are digital tokens issued by a private entity which are backed by a fixed amount of dollars or US treasuries. This is all part of confusion. Unlike the currencies of the past, CBDCs and stablecoins are fully programmable. That means it's not real money. Okay? This means governments and central banks can manipulate them in real time. They'll have the ability to raise and lower interest rates on those currencies in real time. They'll have the ability to put restrictions on those currencies in real time, such as where it can be spent and on what. Also, with CBDCs and stablecoins, governments will be unprecedented or will have unprecedented surveillance powers. Okay? They'll have full insight into every financial transaction you make, and they'll control them accordingly. Under the Genius Act, which was signed by Trump, the law in the United States states, quote, all stablecoin users must possess the technical capability to seize, freeze, or burn payment stablecoins when legally required and must comply with lawful orders to do so, end quote. So both CBDCs and stablecoins give governments and central banks power over every buy or sell decision made with those currencies. See? Before you say, oh, people will never agree to that. Know this, people will demand it. They'll claim it's necessary to prevent another crisis like the one that just unfolded. They'll claim that to prevent 21st century bank runs, they need 21st century regulatory tools. They'll claim CBDCs and stablecoins will enable law enforcement to identify criminals like Bernie Madoff instantly. See, so they've manufactured a crisis, they've exposed problems, and now the people are on board for a great solution, right? So they expose people like Bernie Madoff because they'll know in real time if bad actors embezzle or misallocate funds. They'll claim CBDCs and stablecoins will give regulators much needed insight into the shadow banking system and systematically important non-bank financial institutions, entities that don't currently fall under their same regulatory standards as banks. And with this new oversight, such as crisis will never happen again. Ultimately, the public will embrace CBDCs and stablecoins as a safeguard against future financial crisis. It's an empty promise. Just like you own nothing and you be happy. That is an empty promise in and of itself. What the fuck do you mean by that? You own nothing and you be happy. Happiness is part of owning shit. So if you're not gonna own nothing, there ain't gonna be no happiness. You'd be miserable. Number 2, tokenized assets. The second element of the new system that's going to be rolled out will be tokenized assets. Every asset on earth will be digitized. This includes stocks, bonds, precious metals, art, real estate, and anything else of value which can be cataloged, tracked, and traded. Again, the public will embrace tokenized assets. They'll claim they're necessary to prevent another financial crisis like the one we just went through. Remember, when the system breaks, many people will realize for the first time that they didn't really own the stocks they thought they owned. The failure of several Wall Street brokerages and settlement entities will reveal an epic game of financial music chairs where concepts such as naked short selling led to multiple people thinking they own the same share of stock. By definition, only one can be the owner, and the others will lose out. Who do you think is going to be the owner then? And who do you think is going to be losing out? Okay. Many retirement accounts will be devastated. So your 401ks, your pension plans, all that stuff, gone. And we told you, it's coming. The solution? Tokenized assets, a transparent method for tracking ownership in real time on a public-facing blockchain. In the aftermath of a market crash where so many people lose out, they'll claim tokenized assets will prevent future fraud and abuse of financial regulations. The third and final way will be digital IDs. The third element of the new system will be digital ID. Governments will roll out digital IDs as a means to verify the identities of those transacting in CBDCs, stablecoins, and tokenized assets. They'll claim digital IDs will prevent fraud and abuse, but because they're centralized, all information associated with an individual, they make a person more vulnerable to identity theft. A single hack and every aspect of your life will be compromised. And guess who's going to be doing the hacking? These elites and their AI bots. Okay? In reality, digital ID isn't about what's best for you. It's about what's best for government, right? Meaning the rule of the minds of the people. By centralizing all information associated with you as an individual, right? Because remember, they want to tie everything into that digital ID. They're pushing for it. It's already normalized in certain countries, okay? So by centralizing all information associated with you as an individual, it streamlines their ability to surveil your life, okay? If that's the case, why will anyone go along with the digital ID system? Simple. They'll make digital ID a requirement to receive CBDC, stable coins, or tokenized assets. And people will gladly adopt the first two elements of the new system in order to avoid financial ruin. See? Want your uninsured bank deposits from the bank that failed? You can have them, but only in CBDC or stablecoin. We told the world this was going to happen, and they're going to pull the same trick. They'll take away everything, shut it all down, and say, look, there's a new system. If you want your shit back, you have to be registered on the CBDC shit. You have to have an account, online account, digitized account. And then soon it's going to be, we need to recognize who's who and what's what, and track down the bad guys and so on and so forth. So therefore, everyone must be identified. And the only identification that's going to be acceptable in the system will be the RFID microchip, point blank period. Okay? So they're already tying that in to your ability to buy and sell. The ability to buy and sell, that no man might buy or sell system will already be in place before the chip come out. Okay? That no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, that system will be set in place before the mark comes out. So once that system is set in place fully, where you're doing CBDCs and all that, that's going to be the days right before the chip. Okay? And them CBDCs, guess what? Right out the gate, they're going to tell you they are accepting microchip implants as a form of payment. You're going to hear companies start pushing that shit. And then eventually, they're going to start mandating it. It's required. If you don't have it, you can't enter. You can't do this. You can't do that. And as time goes on, it becomes those who don't have it are a danger to society, and they must be found, arrested, and put to death. It's all part of the hour of temptation. It's coming. It's coming. It is coming. Okay? It says those stocks you lost when the brokerages and settlement houses defaulted, you can have them back, but only as secure tokenized assets. If you're on board, the government will deposit the cash equivalent of the lost assets to your digital wallet. You can then use CBDC or stablecoin to buy back your lost assets. Don't want CBDC or stablecoins? Then your lost deposits and assets remain out of reach. Yeah, they're going to get a lot of people with that. And what about those who had no cash or assets to begin with? They'll be on board too. The government will offer everyone free cash to jumpstart the economy and avoid social unrest. Simply claim your digital wallet and $10,000 will be waiting for you. Still not convinced? How about $25,000 or maybe $50,000? This offer will prove irresistible for many. We've already seen similar offer rollouts in Thailand. In the 12th step, the new system becomes mandatory. With all these incentives, adoption of the new system will take place rapidly, quickly. In the aftermath of the greatest financial and economic crisis in history, many people who have lost their homes, retirement accounts, and cash deposits will gladly accept the offer of the new digital system in order to restore their lost fortunes. Now remember, it's not going to be pitched as the Motb. It will be pitched as a form of convenience, as the new way. Companies are just, wallet more and this and that, Neuralink and all that. They're all going to be jumping on board. It's just going to be the direction of the world. All of a sudden, everyone is going through the same thing. It's a global thing. He calls it all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Okay? So it says here, with all these incentives, adoption, I think we read that already. There you go. They'll willingly accept CBDCs, stablecoins, and digital IDs as a form of 21st century convenience. We just said that. In a relatively short period of time, the number of people in the system will reach critical mass. At that point, any remaining holdouts who refuse to take part in the new system will simply be forced into the system. This will happen when governments drive the final nail in the coffin of the old system and ban the use of physical cash. They'll claim cash needs to be outlawed because only drug lords, money launderers, and terrorists use it. That's right. They already have it ready to go. Okay? We want to make sure we have this so we can track the bad guys when they're sending money across the world to cause harm and shit like that. Lying ass bitches. Anyone who objects based on privacy concerns will receive the standard mantra. If you've got nothing to hide, then what are you afraid of? Once they force the last holdouts into the system, the door to the cage will slam shut. The entire world will be locked into a new economic system, one that gives governments and central banks unprecedented power over every individual on the face of the planet. While this new system will not be the mark of the beast system, well, it is the mark of the beast system, just not the mark of the beast yet. It will be indistinguishable in capability and function from the mark of the beast system foretold in the Bible. So how will it not be fulfilling that? It's like, these people, man. Regardless of whether or not this new system is initially abused or not, the infrastructure will be in place for the mark of the beast system to appear at the midpoint of the 7-year tribulation. So these people go off with that 7-year tribulation bullshit. All right, they don't get it. They don't understand it, but that's all right. Let's get this. Let's keep getting some more. Okay? The mark of the beast system rolls out. It's a countdown, baby. It's a countdown. Once the world reaches the midpoint of the tribulation, won't skip all that, the Antichrist and the false prophet will roll out the mark of the beast system. The Antichrist and the false prophet. Okay? It says, as the book of Revelation reveals, they will require everyone on the face of the earth to receive a mark on their right hand or on their forehead, and that no one will be able to buy or sell without that mark. Okay? Revelation 13, verse 16 and 17. When the anti-Messiah and false prophet make their move to implement the mark of the beast system, they won't have to scramble to create it. The basic system will already exist. All they'll have to do is flip the switch, and this is how the world will go from the current conflict in the Middle East to the mark of the beast system. The time between steps will vary, and some are likely to occur simultaneously, but keep in mind, all 12 steps won't be complete in a day or a week. It will likely take years for all these steps to fully play out. Hey, the Lord is speeding things up, man. It's going to take months for all this shit to play out. I don't know what this nigga talking about. All right, I don't know what the fuck this nigga talking about. Right, because they're downplaying the severity of the whole Iran shit. Like the things that's about to happen, because remember, it's just a domino effect. These are all speculations from people who don't want to see the downfall of America. They just have no choice but to speak on the reality of what we're facing. That's it. We would have healed Babylon, but she will not be healed, right? Take bomb for her, right? So they're at the point where they're like, yo, we just got to call it for what it is, man. We don't want this to happen. We don't want to see America go down, but we're seeing America going down and we just have nothing but to talk about it. Okay? And they're hoping something good comes out of it. There ain't nothing good. The only good that comes out of it is America's destruction. That's the only good that comes out of this. Okay? Is we're only beginning to experience the full effect of step 1 right now, and it will likely take until the end of the year to reach step 5. If it's going to take the end of the year to reach step 5, then, bro, from step 6 to step 12 could play out in 2027. Okay? I hope this article helps you to understand how we're blah, blah, blah. Okay, so we pretty much got it. All right, pretty much there. The rest is all fluff to Christians and Jesus Christ and all this extra stuff that they be preaching that don't get nowhere. Right? But the point has been made. It's a quite lengthy article, but we got through it. Okay, but these are the 12 steps to the mark of the beast, and the Iran war is just a trigger. Okay, so prepare. You know, you had the prophets telling you these days are coming. All right, and we're not going to get off our watchtower. We're going to stay on our watchtower and keep on giving that warning. Okay, because we get into a time where that warning will stop. Okay, when these devils finally make that move and they shut everything out, okay, you're locked in. And you're not going to have no way out except Yahushua to come break out the elect from this prison. Okay? There's a book of Ezekiel chapter 3, verse 17. It says, Son of man, I have made thee a watchman unto the house of Israel. Therefore hear the word of my mouth and give them warning from me. When I say unto the wicked, thou shalt surely die, and thou givest him not warning, nor speakest to warn the wicked from his wicked way, to save his life, and say, the same wicked man shall die in his iniquity, but his blood will I require at thine hand. So ISUPK, IUIC, your leaders who are misleading, all right, the 2/3 of the nation of Israel, guess what? The 2/3 of the nation of Israel going to get that work, and all these dudes who are misleading, I should say, the blood is going to be on y'all hands. Y'all have to answer for that. Okay? You have to answer for that. Verse 21, Nevertheless, if thou warn the righteous man that the righteous sin not, and he doth not sin, he shall surely live, because he is warned. Also thou hast delivered thy soul. Okay, so it's a 2-time thing. You get a blessing, all right, and a blessing. Okay, not just for yourself, but also for the person that repented because of the works that you're doing. Okay, is in the hand of the Lord Yahweh was there upon me, and he said unto me, Arise, go forth into the plain, and I will talk with thee there. All right, so that's the end of it right there. The point was to get, all right, that we have one job, one duty, which is to give warning to the nation of Israel, right, who are scattered all throughout the end of the world. Okay, of the days that's coming, and then one major prophecy that's yet to hit before the destruction of America, Babylon the Great, and that is the mandatory implementation of the mark of the beast, which is the RFID microchip. For those who are teaching contrary to that, the reality will dictate your actions. You're going to be faced with, in that day, you and your family will be faced with that decision. Do I take it or not? That's the question. Anyway, I'm out of there. Lord willing, you're edified and informed. In closing, I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Rachak, Wadash, the water, Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, and until next time, Shalom.